Hello and welcome to the Playtime with Rufus podcast with me, Mario Radinger. Have you ever wanted to work with higher dimensional beings yourself? Then why not join my transformative Soul Journeys quantum hypnosis training? In 4 clear, easy to follow modules, you will learn how to guide deep explorations filled with clarity, insight, and guidance for others. For more information, visit thesouljourneys.com. And this is episode 13 of Playtime with Rufus, a spiritual and metaphysical podcast unlike any other. A new episode, a new conversation with our higher dimensional friend, who, as you know, is speaking through Emily, our incredibly gifted channel, without whom none of this would be possible. I'm your host, Mario, and we're so glad you're here joining us again on this journey. After last episode's spontaneous Q&A, we return to our exploration of the mental layer today and move deeper into how the mind actually functions inside the human avatar. Rufus starts by explaining the relationship between the conscious mind, the subconscious or unconscious, and the ego, and why these aspects are so often misunderstood or set against each other rather than working in partnership, which is something they're actually really good at, if we let them. We also look at overthinking and why it can feel so paralyzing, at the concept of surrender and why it is so frequently confused with passivity, and at the responsibility that comes with our actions in this unique playtime. In this context, we learn why the game cannot respond without action, the consequences of not acting, and why working with the various factions of your mental layer rather than against them is highly recommended for a fulfilling Earthian experience. If you've ever felt stuck between thinking, feeling, and acting, this episode is for you. Rufus offers lots of practical advice on how to move gracefully through everyday life with the help of your mental layer by providing clarity on common mental challenges such as decision-making, self-sabotage, and the illusion of waiting for the right moment, quote marks, as Rufus would say. If you're enjoying Playtime with Rufus, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe so these conversations can reach as many avatars as possible. Thank you as well for leaving your questions for Rufus in the comments on YouTube, Spotify, and Instagram. We're still collecting questions for the upcoming listener Q&A episode of Season 1. The list is growing quickly, and at this rate, it's highly probable that this may turn into more than one episode. Once those Q&As are ready, you'll be the first to know. And now, buckle up and enjoy the ride. This is episode 13 of Playtime with Rufus, where higher wisdom meets human curiosity. And now, I would like to ask Rufus to integrate themselves into Emily's body so we can speak to each other again. May I speak to Rufus again, please?
Yard.
Excellent.
Take us a moment if you allow it to settle completely.
Let me know when you're ready.
Yes, you do.
All right. Welcome back, Rufus.
I am.
And I would like to ask you to please raise your volume a little bit so the microphone can pick up the signal.
We would gladly do it.
Wonderful. That's much better.
Right.
And we're back. A bit of time has passed, on our plane at least, and we are happy to dive back into our conversations.
And we are as well.
Wonderful. Is there anything you would like to state or share with us before we begin?
Other than we are very happy to serve, and we are pleased to have this conversation with you guys. Not have much more to add in the meantime, unless you are requesting or questioning or asking questions, and in this case, we will be delighted to answer them.
I do have questions, actually.
Yeah.
Last time we focused on a question of Emily regarding the emotional layer. And after that, we went pretty deep into metaphysical stuff. Today, I would like to circle back to the mental layer we were discussing in the session before the previous one.
This is okay with that.
I would like to begin by asking you about the different branches, so to speak, or sections of the mental layer that we are familiar with on our plane here. The conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the ego are the ones I would like to start with. And I would like to hear what your perspective is on these different sections. How do you see them and their functions on our plane?
Yes, we could start with that. Let's start with what you call the unconscious mind, if we're using your words. So basically, what you call unconscious mind will be sort of an autopilot perceived by you, but in fact, it will be the part of you that is narrowly driven or narrowly connected with a higher connection to your non-incarnated self, if we may say. So what you will call an unconscious brain is in fact an enlarged brain, if we may use that term. Do you understand what we are speaking of?
Are you referring to the conscious mind or rational mind?
No, we are referring to what you call the unconscious of the mental layer. You mentioned three parts, correct? The ego, the
Yeah.
conscious, and we will use quote unquote, and the subconscious or unconscious part of it. Is that
Ah, yes, that's correct. You're starting with the subconscious or unconscious part. Okay.
yes? Are using this one first, if it's okay with you.
Of course, of course. Now I can follow.
Okay. So what you will call unconscious, subconscious, well, that would be basically kind of the opposite of the conscious mind wording that you're using.
Mhm.
This will be, in fact, the enlarged mental mind, if we may say it that way, meaning that if from your perspective, it's kind of a hidden or working in a shadow or working without really acknowledging or knowing it to be working, this is in fact the part of you that is large and bigger because it is narrowly driven and connected to yourself as a non-incarnated avatar. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
It would be the non-avatar, if we may say, part of your avatar self.
Right.
Go. Okay. So we are okay on the frame of reference behind this wording. So basically, this part of the mental layer will be functioning on non-mental elements. It will be triggered by instinct, by emotions. It will be triggered by instant knowing, or let's say what you call the coding of your avatar, or the SD card, if we may use this, that comes with your avatar, what it's loaded with already.
Mhm.
So basically, all of this will be composing your subconscious or unconscious part of your mental layer. And therefore, when you are mentioning that the subconscious or unconscious part of a human is the one that knows before the conscious, it is kind of correct. It is also the part of the mental layer that will allow all the signal for automatic functioning of the body, if we may say, to happen. Let's explain a bit more on this. You are not consciously making an effort to tell your body to breathe or move or walk or do stuff that you are daily doing, do you know what we're talking about?
Yes.
So this will be, we can use maybe piloted or driven or operated by what you refer as a subconscious or unconscious part of yourself, as a mind or mental layer. So these parts will be the one managing or operating or launching or controlling these aspects of the avatar that is needed to play the game. So this will be one of the function. The other will be also to preserve your avatar self. And this will be working hand in hand with the ego aspect of it and the conscious aspect. But because we are within this category of the mental layer, as you may say, we will explore a little more. So preserve yourself, because remember, you came with intention of playing a certain game to gain a certain experience, to explore or to experiment self in a particular way, correct?
Mhm.
So in that sense, for self outside of this physical realm and physical body is in need of you to succeed at playing the game, or at least play it fully in order to gain the experience. So the part of this mental layer that is called subconscious or unconscious is also having a preserving option to assure that you are actually playing the game to fulfill the intention that you came with. Does that make sense?
Does that go beyond preserving as in surviving?
Yes, it does. Let's say preserving in any aspect, not necessarily as in life saver, but
Mm.
preserving your avatar or your functions or your codes in order to make sure that somehow you are not completely destroying your own game. This is why we were saying it's working hand in hand with the two other categories of your mental layer. It is not working for this preservation, quote unquote, alone. The three aspects that you mentioned do have to work hand in hand on this. But this layer will be the one that has a reinforced connection to the non-incarnated self.
Can you give an example for the contribution of the subconscious or unconscious in the context of preserving?
Yes, let's say you are walking in the street, correct? And all of a sudden, you do not know why, but you made a bigger step than you were actually doing before. It's because your unconscious or subconscious that has been taking information and that has been controlling this aspect of your vehicle is gathering information that will make you take a bigger step. And this is a very, very mundane example. This is a very casual example we are using right now, but basically to avoid something that could hurt your foot. Maybe a hole, maybe a sharp object, maybe something that you are not supposed to step on in order to preserve you in terms of keeping your function intact and also allowing you to keep on what you were going for that day. Meaning, if you are not preserved from this and you hurt yourself, you are not able to fulfill what you are actually going for at this moment. That might be something needed for your own game, and self-preservation, quote unquote, will be to actually make sure that you can fully go for what you intended to as an avatar on that day. Does that make sense?
It does. And I have a question.
Please do.
So when what the unconscious tries to avoid does happen, for example, stepping on something and it hurts, or stubbing your toe against a piece of furniture, does that mean that when that happens, it's actually meant to, because otherwise it would protect you from experiencing that.
Yes and no. It would protect you, but because it's not playing alone, remember your mental layers, you divided it yourself in 3 categories. So somehow you have to take in consideration that the 2 others have, let's say, equal importance in the way the mental layer is operating. So it could mean that it was meant to happen, or it also could mean that somehow the 2 other overrid this aspect of the mental layer, which is highly possible as well. So this would be just one little example, but you could have many that will not apply necessarily in this kind of element. For instance, when you are thinking, elaborating, or building concepts, thoughts, or plans for your own life within your mental layer, that will be, let's say, the mind, your unconscious can also make sure that you are somehow leading the thoughts or the concept construction or the plan, if we may say, with somehow a certain guidance that will be linked to your bigger self. And the unconscious aspect of your mental layer will make sure that this is taken into consideration within the avatar body. So you are somehow planning and you have also freedom of choice in this body, but because there is this connection that is actually well understood by your unconscious or subconscious aspect, as you may call it, this will also work hand in hand with your initial plan without clearly interfering if your other aspect, the conscious and the ego parts, are in disagreement. But if the free will matches the initial plan, then the unconscious or subconscious aspect of the mental layer voice will be heard loudly when you are constructing a thought plan or building a concept or preparing for actions. Do you understand?
I believe so.
Perfect. So you see, all of this will be somehow automatic of your mental layer. We are using automatic because when you're thinking automatic, you're thinking something that you're not consciously or that you're not making an effort to do. It's happening automatically. In that sense, we are using this because since you are not consciously or egoically involving your mental layer and it's only driven unconsciously or subconsciously, or should we say by your connection to the bigger self, then it would be in your eyes as a human, it would be considered as automatic mental parts. Is that clear enough?
Yes.
Okay. So now, if you are taking the 2 other parts of your subdivision, this is different because now if you take the conscious aspect, this is only happening from an avatar point of view. This is why we're having a bit of an issue before with consciousness.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
We will use conscious in our definition today. So the conscious mind being the one that the avatar self is fully aware of and fully in control of somehow, that is actually nourished by its own experience and its own knowledge as an avatar, its own digestion and integration of information, its own translation of everything the avatar experienced from the day it came to life. Do you understand what we are referring to now?
I believe so.
Okay, perfect. So this conscious layer of conscious subgroup, if we may say, as the mental layer, is 100% driven by the avatar. So this will be the 100% illustration of the freedom of choice within the mental layer. The other one that we mentioned before will be the one that is somehow linked to the bigger self and not really part of the 100% freedom of choice because it is somehow still attached and steered or driven or generated by the bigger parts. Do you see the difference between the two?
Yes, it makes sense.
Okay. Let's say if you are walking as an adult, because this would be a perfect example, you take an adult avatar, you take a child avatar, and they are both walking on the same path. And on this path, there is, let's say, a hole filled with water, right? The conscious aspect of the mental layer within the adult avatar will tell this avatar to avoid the pit hole filled with water because the conscious aspect will decide that it will dirty the shoes, maybe splash further, dirty the pants. That will mean maybe looking dirty for the rest of the day. They cannot adjust the situation, meaning that will be not appropriate or that will be bothering, or you can see how it can anticipate everything
Right.
compared to the conscious mind of the child that will be, let's say, highly or heavily influenced by the unconscious because the child has the intuition based behavior that is very strongly linked to the bigger aspect of self. The conscious mind, the conscious subgroup of the mental layer of this child avatar will ask him to jump because his or her anticipation, depending on the choice, will be that it will be fun, that it will splash and be funny, that it will be enjoyable, it will create a new experiment, it will be something joyful that will have a very high frequency that will make the child feel a certain way. And you see, this is a good example to show you a big difference and how the conscious subgroup of your mental layer being nourished by your avatar experience evolved. Because as a child, you don't have much avatar experience. You have, in fact, more of the non-avatar of the big player experience that you're dragging with you in that game. And therefore, what you are consciously intending to create is experience that is fun, not caring or not paying attention to what it will generate within your avatar experience furthermore. Meaning you will not think as a child, if I consciously jump in that pit hole filled of water, I will be dirty for the rest of the day. Mommy and daddy or anybody else will have to clean those clothes for me. I will look dirty to my peer. I will look dirty for the rest of the world. This will not be part of your preoccupation as the child. It will be as the adult because this aspect of your mental layer has been cultivated and fed and evolved with your own evolution as an avatar. And so the information that it's able to take and the digestion of it, the integration and all the consequences that a single action will have, your conscious mind as an adult see it completely differently than the conscious mind as a child.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yes. May I ask a question? The example you just presented is, I would say, a rather harmless one when it comes to the consequences. And I'm asking this question, I guess, for all the parents who are listening to this right now. What if an action of a child leads to more severe consequences, maybe damage or hurt of the physical vessel, even though intuitively the child went into this in a playful way? Could you speak about that?
Yes. Well, you will have different options. Intuitively, when it comes to hurting the vessel, somehow a lot of child, and you can witness this, already know that there is a limit. Let's say a child will be easily jumping in the pit hole full of water, but a child would not easily be jumping in a pool if they feel somehow intuitively that there might be a danger. But when it's not obvious to this subconscious part of the mental layer, when the danger is not that known of this aspect, then you can have two options. Either the child go for it consciously and the consequences will be harmful and therefore they will have experienced it and their conscious aspect of the mental layer will now know that doing this may lead to harmful or maybe a very harmful possibility or consequence. Or they will not jump because they are accompanied by another avatar that does have that conscious subgroup of the mental layer already built with these informations, already able to anticipate, and that will protect the child avatar from doing it. But if the child avatar was alone, they will only rely on the three aspects described of the mental layer. The subconscious one, or let's say they're linked to us, that will gutly tell them, maybe I don't want to do this because I feel like there could be bad. Or if it's not strong enough, or if it's not seeing the hidden danger, then they will have the choice to do it because consciously they feel like that's what they want to do. And the result will be automatically either they're lucky and it's not that big of a deal because the danger was not big, or it's a bad quote unquote result because the consequences of being hurt will happen. And even if it will send now the information to the conscious part of the mental layer that will now know that if you do that, you may have this consequence and you may take this information in consideration for another time that the situation is presented, then the harm will be here anyway. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. And this is why parenting or being in charge of younger comes with high responsibility. Because on one hand, consciously, the big avatar, the grown up or the more responsible avatar do not want to forbid the younger avatar to explore and experiment, but because they understand more of consequences or they have a larger conscious spectrum of what can a situation lead to, they will want to protect the younger avatar that they know because they remember that they once were that avatar with a very little constructed conscious of everything that this playtime presents. So they will want to be protective of the younger avatar. And this is where the forbid or the don't do this or the maybe just even take the child and remove it from the situation happen, because they have this ability to consciously see the different road that this situation could lead to in terms of consequences. And this is also why humans like to call innocent an avatar that is a child or a children avatar, because they have this innocence not in as what we understand the definition of we're not guilty, but innocence in the definition of we do not understand the consequences of this action. We do not see more than what we consciously know or that we unconsciously, intuitively know. We only see this aspect. So if we do not have enlarged our spectrum, we are innocent in the way of we did not have all the information to knowingly choose from before we make a choice of jumping in the pit hole filled of water. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I can see why it's designed that way in this playtime, that younger ones are paired with older ones while growing up to kind of balance out the not knowing.
Yes. Remember, conscious aspect of your mental, you're 100% linked to this game. So that means it is built as long as you go in this game. And it is built with you moving through this game as well. It's not coming already fully built up and fully operational. It has to be constructed. It has to be built. It has to be enlarged as you go within the game. And this is also why sometimes humans use the term more conscious or less conscious, because even in older or let's say grown-ups avatar, the degree of built for a conscious aspect of the mental layer is not the same. Some will have very much enlarged their spectrum, and some will not, because maybe, and this is where the silver lining is, the more actions, the more risk, the more experiences you have within this playtime, the more able you are to enlarge your spectrum. The more you are witnessing, the more you are actually experimenting with others and seeing them making choices or action that would lead to consequences, the more you're able to enlarge your spectrum as well. So either you build it from first-hand experience, either you build it from witnessing how it happens for others. Does that make sense?
It does.
So the more you're exposing yourself to the game, basically, the more, and this is where the silver lining is, the more you're going to jump into those dirty pit holes, the more you'll be able to build up and extend and enlarge your spectrum. And the more you're going to be able to build this conscious, 100% game-based aspect of your mental layer.
It sounds like a dance between risk and reward.
Yes. And this is where most of the time the ego and unconscious aspect of your mental layer have importance, because unconscious being linked to your intuition, this will be important to follow. And the ego having your survival as an avatar, this is what it's made for. This is what it's coded for. Ego wants protection at all time of the avatar in order to continue the game. This is what it's made for. So this is also where it has a role to play in this situation.
So this is where the survival aspect comes in.
Yes, and survival in terms of every layer. This is why sometimes when it touch upon the emotional layer, the ego is acting a certain way, like defensive mode or shutting off or shutting down or using this kind of reaction because it is protective mode in order not to be shook or not to be taken out of your comfort zone. Because you also have to understand, ego being part of your mental layer needs to make yourself mentally comfortable at all times. Needs to make yourself, when it's part of the emotional layer, emotionally comfortable at all times. Needs to make you physically comfortable at all times. Needs to make you basically safe and comfortable within your game at all times. This is why sometimes it is tricky, because the protective mode is activated so loudly that it's preventing you from growing, because we are hoping as a whole that you understood from now, like you say, risks we may use experiments is actually what allows you to broaden your spectrum. And if ego is so strongly operating, then this is where it becomes complicated, because ego will want you to stay safe and stay in the known, because it considers the known being safe, because it is able to consciously see the consequences and know them already. Ego is actually drawing from the conscious and subconscious aspect of your mental understanding, that what you consciously know, you know, and it's safe to choose, because you know that if you take road 1, this happened, road 2, this happened, road 3, this happened. And it is safe to then take action and operate in this known range. Ego also know that what you don't know can make you grow and can broaden your spectrum, but can also being harmful and stressful for yourself.
Mhm.
So sometimes ego needs a little hand from intuition or the unconscious, subconscious to make sure that the risk is worth taking and the discomfort is worth taking because it will give ego more tools to better protect you in the end. So it's definitely a dance because pretty much within almost every layer, if not all of them, you will have constantly this duality. Yes, it will be good to do this and take actions like this, but no, it might be not good to do this or take actions like this. It's a dance between, okay, am I taking this step forward and am I taking the risk because I need to keep playing the game and building my game, or am I just staying in my comfort zone, knowing that if I do that, my game or my field of playing this game will be restricted? Does that make sense?
It does.
The mental layer is training constantly to be able to play that dance and know how to play it the best way it can for your avatar to enjoy the playtime and for your higher player part of you to also be able to enjoy this playtime. So the mental layer is, let's say, almost completely built within this game, but somehow has a part of itself that is linked to the non-gamer.
Which would be the unconscious part.
It will be that subdivision you're using, yes.
It sounds as if the ego is in a constant dilemma.
It is. It is. And this is also why we do not like the term of killing, quote unquote, the ego. Because if you're killing your ego, you're not able to play the game. See, this ego part is actually what allows your avatar to play the game. So you are not to be killing it. You are just to be reassuring it and taming it and learning how to not let its protective mission, if we may use that, or protective instinct to somehow restrict the game for you. This is what is intended when humans use the expression killing the ego. It's not killing it. It's basically making sure that it's not operating 100% so we still can play the game, grow within the game, and experience the game in different aspects than the one we already know at this moment.
Could you give an example of what a healthy or balanced integration or utilization of the ego would look like?
Yes, okay. We're going to use an example of a younger age, right? Because it could be good to also see that there is an ego at a younger age. So let's say you're a younger avatar and you are playing with your friends and you see another group of friends that is playing a game that you do not know if you will be good at and you never played before. And your ego part is telling you, okay, first, you don't necessarily know the game. You don't necessarily know those other children. It will be safer for you to stay with your friends right now, playing the game you always play, that you know you're good and comfortable at, and not going to put yourself at risk to experience something that you might make a fool out of yourself because you might not know how to play it, or to play with other avatar that you might not feel comfortable with because you don't know them. So you will have to be at risk of introducing yourself and maybe suffer rejection. Or you could see
Mhm.
how this ego will start, shaking somehow. Then the good way, the killing the ego, as you say, that is not accurate, and we say you as humans, the more dimming or making it at ease will be to tell it, okay, I see that you want to protect me right now. And I understand the possibility of failing at the game, of getting rejected. But also, if I don't try to experiment that game, I'll never know if I'm good or bad at it. I'll never know if I like it or not. If I don't go meet those children, I'll never know if I can be friends with them. I'll never know if I have more friends. So although I understand that you're trying to protect me, I really want to put myself out there and try something new because I feel like this is how I'm going to grow instinctively. See, this will be the unconscious part of your avatar that will somehow be not fighting, but talking, communicating with the ego part and the conscious part as well. Because the conscious part will be evaluating. Yes, I know this. I don't know that. So I don't know what consequence it can be. But consciously, I'm kind of feeling intrigued by it. And I kind of feel also that if I go there, I will then know more and I will grow consciously. But the three of them now have to find a balance and decide which one is gonna give somehow. And most of the time, when younger avatars are at this crossroad within their day and action is needed because they are strongly linked to their higher being, the curiosity of playing the game will be stronger. Sometimes younger avatar that evolved in a very unsafe or very shaken emotional ground, or that would not be in phase with their emotional layered, or that would be suffering from environmental situation with other avatars involved that would be not peaceful or not supporting. Sometimes this younger avatar, when at the crossroad, would not be able to hear their curiosity wanting to explore louder than the other parts because they're somehow being conditioned to already have a hierarchy within their mental layers. Does that make sense?
It does.
But this has been conditioned. And this is why we wanted to emphasize that the mental layer, although is not 100% built upon enduring this game, it is almost 100% built within this game. The only thing that is not is what you take from your higher being that is basically intuitively or unconsciously or subconsciously connected to the mental layer. But if you're conditioned, if your experience within the game has already been so intense and so strongly directed by your environment, by other avatar, and by your own experience, then it could be harder for a younger avatar to be still driven by this strong subdivision of the mental layer. And this is the issue, quote unquote, because it's not really one, but it could be an issue for the adult avatar because they've been so conditioned by their own game, their own environment, their own relation to self and others while playing the game that they are deeming maybe the connection to the higher instead of deeming the ego part of the mental layer.
Yeah. I can see
Is
why.
is it clear enough? It's difficult to illustrate and talk about it, but you really have to perceive it as an three-way conversation because we're using three subdivision right now as a three-way conversation where different point of views are expressed. If an action is needed, you need to come somehow to conscientious, or you need somehow to have one that will give and one that will take on, that decision. And this is why it can be very difficult. And this is why also some avatar are never able to reach decision because they are constantly with this mental inner battle because not one aspect is ready to give and not one aspect is ready to take on. It's paralyzing.
I see. For the avatar experiencing those situations, it doesn't really feel like three different aspects are dancing with each other. It's kind of all happening in the eye, so to speak. The voices of those aspects can't always easily be discerned. Where does the personality, the avatar come in, that part that can't really see the difference in all these aspects? What's that part that experiences this dance but can't really tell what part is speaking right now?
This is your avatar self. Because, see, if you are more aware of the metaphysical aspect of the game, you are able to discuss and talk about several parts within yourself. But if you're immersed in that game, you are not. So your avatar personality is 100% believing that whatever is happening in the mental layer is just one big part that is the self, that is right now it's them. And sometimes when they feel like they are split because they feel they want to do this and they know they don't want to do that, and they hear like different possibility within themselves almost fighting, they think that they are actually having mental confusion and they are basically having inner self battle, which is actually true. But it will be easier to, at this point, accept that this inner battle is happening because there are a multitude of layers within their one self. And those layers operating differently will have different voices. And this is why they are feeling split at this moment. And all they can do, if they are still seeing themselves as a one self and not layered, is decide which aspect of what is happening up here is gonna be louder. Problem is, when it's all mushed together, it's really difficult to not be paralyzed because you have so much going on mentally that you're completely unable to take any decision and therefore take any action, and therefore the game is not being played by you, and you will probably surrender power to the environment or other avatar to somehow steer the game for you.
Exactly. What would be your recommendation for someone finding themselves in such a confused situation?
Well, unfortunately, they won't have that much possibility. It will be either they are able somehow to deal with this battle in their mental layer, even if they don't recognize the multiple subgroups within the layer, but they are able to somehow decide, okay, I'm torn, but I'm going to go with this. And in this case, the decision will come from them. They will be steering their own game, and the consequences might be what they wanted or not. They will learn later that they should have been going with the other parts of them, or they are pleased that they make that choice. So that's let's say outcome number one. They are able to take action and to steer their own game. But if they are not able to make a decision because the mush, because the inner battle, because the mental aspect is so blurry and so confusing that they are paralyzed, then they are basically somehow, without knowing it, accepting that life, so the game, so environments, so other avatars are going to steer their own game for themselves. Does that make sense?
Could you go into that last bit?
Use an example. Okay. Let's say you're an avatar, you're having this mental blurriness, and you're unable to decide which part of yourself you're going to follow, and you're unable to take any action. But because you're in a situation where an action is needed, let's say you're being asked to do something by a teacher. We're going to take a very simple example. You're being asked by a teacher to do something. At the moment, you're having this mental breakdown where you're paralyzed and you're unable to do anything. Well, guess what? What's going to happen is somebody else is going to do it for you, or somebody else is going to do it instead of you, or the teacher is going to decide that because you're paralyzed, you're going to deserve punishment, or you deserve exclusion, or whatever. Either the teacher is going to take over your own game and you're going to have to accept the consequences of their decision regarding the situation and you are not able to put any action on, or you will have to witness other take the decision for yourself and either do it for you or tell the teacher, okay, don't worry, I'll help them. And therefore, their help will be steered by their own decision to help you in the way they think best fit.
Yeah, I see.
Disregarding of how the situation evolves, it will not evolve with you piloting the boat, basically. It will evolve because others or the environment or not you will be forced to make the situation go somewhere. And even if it's to grant you help, the help will be granted, but it will be steered in the way the helper decided consciously to steer it. Because you were paralyzed, nobody else will know but you what actions you were actually considering doing.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does.
And
Yeah.
this is what is called giving power or surrendering your own power to a situation. And in our experience, it could be acceptable because you are somehow seeing and you are witnessing firsthand what happens when you're paralyzed and unable to take action. And you are now seeing that the consequences is that life or the game or others or whatever is involved in that playtime will decide for you. You will still have to face consequences, but not the consequences created by you being active. It will be consequences created by you not taking actions and letting the movie unfold. So that could be a good lesson, a good experience. And the other part could be also good. If you take actions, even if you take the wrong one, you would know you took the wrong one. You would learn that consequences are not a good match for you if you take this action. And if you take the correct one that will make you feel harmonious within yourself, you will then learn that, okay, this was the correct action to take at this moment. It has these consequences. So no matter the situation, you will grow within your game. The difference will be in one case, you let the game play for you. In the other one, you are the one playing the game active.
Right. Yeah.
In both, you're still part of the game, so it's still okay.
The game continues either way.
Continue.
What if someone, like an avatar, who finds themselves in this confusion many times, says, I don't like these states, these situations. I don't want to be in this confusion anymore. What can I do to avoid or reduce this confusion in my life? What would you say to such an avatar?
In terms of how can I gain clarity in my mental layer?
Yes, I don't enjoy this confusion. I want to live with more clarity.
Well, just like any other situation, basically, we would advise the avatar to center it, take time, and really try to consciously first analyze all the different voices that are happening in their head right now. The one that is telling them, do this. The one that is telling them, don't do this. And once they are able to identify clearly what choices they have in terms of action, so either I'm not active, either I'm acting this way, either I'm acting that way. Right now I'm confused because I have no clue which way is best for me, but at least I'm able to acknowledge that I hear, let's say 3, 4, 5, multiple directives, right?
Right.
Then take a moment, center yourself and call upon your other layer. Call upon your emotional layer and ask that layer consciously still, okay, that choice, if I make it, am I gonna feel good about it? Is it gonna fulfill me? Or if it's something that is scaring me, if it's something that is putting me not at ease, do this for every aspect of directive that you were able to sort. And once you do that, and once you're into your emotional layer, now try to analyze why you think that if you take this action, it will make you feel with joy, It will make you feel with fear. It will make you uncomfortable. It will make you blossom. And try to ask yourself at this moment, and now it will be non-consciously, but intuitively. You're going down this rabbit hole, right?
Mhm.
And you're down to the last part of it. You analyze all the directives that are actually mingling in your mind, in your mental layer. You're now digging into the emotional aspect to see if there is emotions that would be attached to those different options. And you're now digging deeper, trying to see which emotion will be the more acceptable for you. And you're now, final point, asking yourself, not consciously, but intuitively, meaning the question is, okay, what emotions am I most comfortable with right now? What do I really want to feel like right now? And intuitively, the answer you will give yourself, then you go back up the rabbit hole and it will be attached to the directive you need to follow. It is a very complicated exercise at first. It takes time. It's hard and it takes courage to do it. But the more you do it, the easier it gets and the more automated it gets as well.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
It does. Is the tool that is used for this process down and up the rabbit hole again the conscious mind, the rational mind?
Yes. You will use all the layers because basically you're outside the rabbit hole, correct? You're using your conscious mind and your ego to see all the doors that you are actually drawing in your mind, in your mental layer, in order to take an action. You're drawing this door to this action, this door to this action. Okay. And you know at this moment you're unable to do anything, you're unable to take any decision. Okay. Consciously, you know that. Now, consciously, you separate each door and you go down rabbit hole for each and every door that you're able to see consciously. And consciously still, you're asking what emotions, if I take this, I may encounter consciously. And then you go down consciously, consciously, consciously until you reached everything you can comprehend or analyze or know consciously, right? And this is when you ask yourself the question and you intuitively, meaning you take the first thing that comes to you, whether it's a feeling, whether it's a knowing, whether it's a little voice in your head, whatever, you take the first thing that comes to you, your intuition. When you're down the rabbit hole and you're asking yourself at this moment, what do I want to experience more? It comes to you. Then you go back consciously with that answer. And because you heard intuitively, let's say, okay, I choose the scary way because somehow, even I'm scared, I understand that in my guts, I feel there's something good and I need to take this. Even if it doesn't make sense because you're scared and you can rationalize it at the moment you're giving yourself this answer. But intuitively, once you went down that rabbit hole, this is what comes. Okay. Then consciously you go back up. I know I have to do this. And consciously I choose fear. Consciously I know I'm going to be afraid. Consciously I know I'm taking a risk. Consciously I know it's going to need some courage to do it. And consciously you go up and consciously you're like, if I want to do all this, it's this door I need to push. Consciously you go push it by telling your ego at this time to quiet down. So it's like almost at first, you're asking ego and conscious. Then you go down. And as you go down, you'll get rid of conscious and ego and you ask only unconscious, subconscious, intuition. You can call it however you want, but the aspect of the mental layers that is strongly linked to higher self. Then you go back with conscious and ego to finally only use conscious and ask ego to quiet a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you for summarizing.
You're welcome. We are aware and we are saying this like this, using words and making it sound simple, but it's not. It's complex, but it's also how you build the game. It's also how you broaden your spectrum. This is why we started the conversation telling you that the more actions you take within your game, The more experiment, the more experience you build for yourself as an avatar, the more enlarged your spectrum and your ability to understand and play and enjoy the game is there. The less actions you take, the more restricted you are. So even if it's something that is difficult to do as an exercise, it is also something that is doable for everybody that is playing the game. It's part of the design. If you have your mental layer that is able to be dispatched within different groups, those groups are able to interact with each other. Otherwise, the game is not viable. The game is not playable. If the layers have subdivisions that are not able to coordinate, that means the game is rigged.
Right.
Not what's intended. So those layers, as hard as it may appear, as hard as you may find it to be when you start doing it, they are indeed able to coordinate and they are indeed able to dance. And you are, as an avatar, indeed able to manage them. It's just training. It's just discipline somehow. When you get to the situation, start with the question, ask yourself, do I want to be active or do I want to be passive at that moment? Because sometimes you may choose to be passive. You may be so mentally drained and tired and confused that you're like, okay, at this point, I want life to decide for me. And therefore, I want anybody involved or anything involved in this game to just steer me. And it could be okay, but you would not be active. If you want to be proactive, if you want to draw your own game, then you need to take action. You need to own the power that you've been given as an avatar in this game. And you need to go down and up the rabbit hole when it comes to mental confusion.
Where do concepts such as surrender and handing it over to the universe come in? Because those are quite popular concepts nowadays.
Yes, they are quite popular. The concepts can come at any moment where you feel and when you know and when you are in harmony with yourself, saying, I feel like I don't have the tools to do anything. I feel like I'm not equipped right now to take any action. And therefore, I'm going to rely on the game to steer me. But I'm accepting that my way of being proactive is to ask the game to play one round for me. And then I'll jump back and keep on going. But if I do that, I'm also responsible and aware that I fully accept the consequences of it and that I will not hold anybody else but myself responsible for the outcome of choosing to not be proactive in the way of I'm putting the action, but to be proactive in the way of I'm letting the game or universe or my fellow players to steer me.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yes, because a lot of times, humans decide to not do anything, see and wait. But when something happens or not happen, they get mad, they get angry, and they reject the responsibility on game, players, life, avatars, anything and anybody else, but their actual avatar or actual self as a being. And this is not okay. You chose not to do anything because you felt incapable, maybe, but you still choose not to do anything. Therefore, you cannot be mad at consequences you somehow created, even you try not to create anything. See, this game has been designed for it to be somehow constantly evolving, constantly shaping with or without you taking actions, because actions will be made by the game, meaning avatar surrounding somehow. Because if nobody makes action, if nothing is making any action, the game doesn't exist. The game is fed because it's being actively played.
Yeah.
So once you understand that, you can completely choose to not take action, but do not discard your responsibility. Do not reject the fault or do not blame others if the consequences are not to your liking. This is your responsibility as well, even if you are not the one taking the action. your action was actually not to take an action. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Yes, thank you.
And also, we would add something. Sometimes players are sending the knowledge to the avatar that they can use help from the universe, that they can actually rely on the game with faith. But where there is an issue with this statement is the avatar, when believing this, believe that they also don't have to trigger anything, that it will fall on their lap. And it is not the case. We're going to take an example, a simple example. An avatar is actually looking for a new job, okay? They want to have a different experience in the professional game time. Okay. They are asking their higher self, universe, life within the game, okay, I want to switch, I want to change, I want a new job. And because I have faith, it's going to fall down and come knock on my door. Well, it doesn't really work like this. You will still have to do a teeny tiny action that will make sure that at least you tell your surrounding, you tell the game that you are actually looking for a job by putting the action of maybe writing a resume, maybe telling your friends, hey, I'm looking for a job. Do you know anything about opportunities that will be a good match? I'm kind of looking into this area. Those simple little actions are what we call triggering. And this will trigger maybe the rest to unfold for you. But if you're just waiting without writing resume, without telling no one that you're actually willing and wanting to change job, it won't happen. You won't be able to manifest it for yourself because you did not trigger anything. We are not talking about taking all the actions, but we are talking about somehow putting out there in a concrete manner that you are trying to change job and not just putting it in there in a non-concrete manner because you are not playing an etherical game or a thought game. You are playing a tangible, materialistic game. Does that make sense?
It does. So the level of action needs to be involved in some way.
Yes, as minimum as it could be, as we said before, just telling other avatars that you are indeed with the intention of switching job and you are asking to keep their ears open if any opportunities come to them, starting to work on a resume because you're thinking that maybe, when you're ready, it could be good to start looking and apply and you will need a resume. All those little actions, even if you don't push them completely to the end goal, it triggered and you're showing universe, as you call it, or life, that you are waiting for something to come to you, but you are acknowledging that you at least have to start it.
That makes sense. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
There was one more question that came up. Oh, yeah, right. What we call the intellect. Do you
Yes.
see this as one more aspect of the mental layer, or is it kind of merged with the parts we already talked about?
It will merge. Intellect is basically the ability to gather information, translate them or decode them, ingest them, digest them, integrate them, and then put them back outside. A tool for chain of thoughts, for critical analysis, for evaluation of situation. All of this is intellect. But because your subdivision were vast and large, this can fall within the conscious mind because your intellect will definitely have conscious aspect. The ego, because somehow your ego will be based on your intellect and its ability to anticipate risk and anticipate comfort. And it will also fall into the unconscious because somehow your intellect will be fed with energy that might come from your unconscious mind as well.
Okay.
So it will be hovering, it will be dispatched somehow.
Right. Okay. You used an example before of a child in a situation where the ego was acting in a defensive way, trying to keep the child safe. Could you give us another example now involving an adult, a situation in which the ego would more like lash out in an aggressive way?
Yes, usually ego, especially in adults, will lash out when feel attacked, when vulnerable or exposed, right? So let's say you're having an argument and your friend at the time is telling you stuff, and all of a sudden they make a comment and they say, well, with you, it's always like this. Okay. And it's actually something that ego would take and recognize as truth. But because it's truth, it shows weakness because it's something that you haven't been able somehow to overcome or to master yet. So ego will take the comment, recognize it as truth, and then red alarm, the flag will trigger because, oh shit, part of the avatar is not fully rounded yet, hasn't mastered this. There is a weakness here. It is vulnerable. We cannot accept this. We cannot allow it to be seen. We cannot allow it to be exposed because it could be used against us. It is actually right now pointed at, and we are receiving it as a threat, as an attack, even if it was not given this way, because it's exposing us. So we are gonna lash out in order to make sure we can either detour, defocus, putting the focus somewhere else, or we can defend ourselves using arguments that would prove or that would mask somehow our incapability of mastering this for now. And therefore, we will lash out and get at the person that is exposing us, especially if it's in front of others, for instance. So what triggers the ego most of the time is just putting a mirror on what hasn't been mastered or accomplished or known yet by the avatar. This is what ego don't like. What's not known, what's not mastered. Because once you know it, once you master it, you're comfortable in it, you're safe in it. Because it's linked to your intellect. Ego knows all the ramification, all the consequences, all the different situations it could lead to. Ego is smart this way. So everything that you know that you mastered, ego likes. But when you put the mirror and you show ego that there are aspects that haven't been mastered, that are unknown, and therefore that is unable to predict or to analyze or to anticipate the consequences, and therefore that ego cannot make sure that they, talking about the adult avatar, are safe, and it cannot protect 100% for sure its avatar, ego panics.
Yeah.
And this is applicable for many situations as an adult. A lot of situations come actually because ego is panicking and want to protect its avatar because the mirror has been placed on something that is not accomplished, not fully understood, or not fully digested, or not fully known yet.
Would the recommended strategy here be, again, to center yourself in such a situation and kind of talk to the ego and say, I see you, you feel vulnerable right now. We're okay.
Yes, basically, you got this right. You know, the ego likes to talk. It's a very alive part of your avatar self. It likes to be reassured. Think of it as a mini you, as a little you that needs to constantly be validated, constantly be loved, constantly be safe, constantly be reassured that it's doing a great job because it is really trying its best to do a great job. If ego thinks or realized or feel that it's not doing its job completely correctly, this is bad panic mode, like hardcore panic mode. So yes, having a conversation with it will definitely reassure it because you will basically say, okay, I can see now that you are panicking because we are being exposed because unfortunately we haven't mastered this aspect. It is truth, but know that it's okay. because we are sure that eventually we will. And I am grateful for you to show me that this aspect is yet to be mastered. And I am grateful for you to try to protect me from being hurt because we are advancing on unknown territory. And I reassure you that I will always, always keep you aside of me, but I will do my best to master it or to get that knowledge or to pick an outcome that will be safe for me. If you acknowledge it and if you talk to it that way and not kill it, because definitely that's not the right thing to do, then you'll be able to see that ego is going to feel better. If you also can take out the mirror for a minute and just hear what the other person is saying and hear it as truth and decide that it's not trying to hurt you or expose you, it's just making a statement, speaking factual. Let's say, if I'm telling you, you're always getting mad when I talk about mom, boom, okay? This is factual. Your ego will receive it all the way we just discussed. But if you are able to remove the mirror and just decide it, my interlocutor, my friend, or my brother, sister, whoever is speaking to you, is just talking facts. Yes, it's true. We're always getting mad when we're talking about mom. Always. Okay. I accept that. I will not lash out on the person bringing it. I would not lash in. I will discuss within and say, oh, ego, look, this is an opportunity to grow. This is an opportunity for us to become stronger and better and to learn from. So the real question will be not, why is this effer telling us this? Let's get back at him so at least we're safe. No, the question will be for ourselves. Okay, this is true. This is factual. So why? Why is it that I always get mad when talking about mom? And then the constructive conversation with ego can start. And then your conscious mind or subdivisions of your mental layer will be involved and you will enlarge your spectrum and you will be able to go down an up rabbit hole way easily because you're not building a sane and healthy relationship with your ego. You're not trying to kill it. You're not trying to overdrive it. You're just trying to, have a genuine partnership with it. And this is the best you can do as an avatar to be successful at this game, to partnership with yourself. And because we're in a mental layer, all the, subgroup of your mental layer, the one that will have the personality, a strong personality will be ego. So your partnership will be with this one. The conscious, unconscious, this is the way of steering your mental layer. But your partnership, if you could see it as two entities within the same body, that will be this. Ego, you can definitely put a personality on this guy. And you can definitely build a profound, a deep connection and decide it is an aspect of you, but it's not the whole you. So therefore, it's easier this way to detach yourself from the rawness of what ego will receive when feel attacked. Does that make sense?
It does.
And then you go. She gave us a good way of going, like up and down the rabbit hole, down and up the rabbit hole is definitely a good way to treat situation where the mental layer gets confused and you're being inactive and you're completely stuck and you're like, what the F? I don't know what to do. Rabbit hole is good for that. But too much rabbit hole, not good either. So you have to somehow find the balance when you do this exercise that you're not going down rabbit hole too often that is preventing you from living, your life outside of your rabbit hole. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So there is a balance. I'm not sure she mentioned it before, but we would like to emphasize that there's a balance that needs to be found when you do those exercises because you are still living in a very tangible, materialistic game. So you cannot spend all your time within, right? Yeah. You have to spend it out as well. Otherwise, just don't complain. Stay where we are and we'll find within. Yeah.
Yeah. I assume when you just said she, you refer to the aspect of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's us, but we're pretty sure you can hear it right now. Different aspect of us are speaking through Emma. And because you guys like to use the homie, the mom, the dad, and the newbie, if we say correctly or something like that, the new guy, we are taking up those terms that we actually kind of like. And when I say she, I being the homie, she being the mom, then you probably recognize this by now, but
Yeah.
it is us, right?
Yeah.
So we're completing each other's thoughts on it. This
Right.
aspect of we had a lot to say about what you discussed today. And this aspect of we that I am just like to pop in and, conversate a little bit before we can go on our day, and you can too as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to ask that actually. Why did you decide to pop in?
Yeah. I mean, I, as in the homie,
Yeah.
we do have opportunities to come in and cross the vessels and have conversation, but it's not most of you avatars asking, energy being to come visit you through a body and then have full on conversation. So those moments we do cherish and appreciate. This aspect of us that I am love to do it. So, if I get a shot at doing it, I would just kind of push my way in, if I may say. But yeah, this is why I can.
I can tell.
Yeah.
All right. I wanted to ask about the brain, what
Yeah.
you would like us to know about this physical part of the mental plane, because we associate it highly with with mental activity. But
Yeah.
before we dive into this aspect, is there any other part of the mental layer that we have ignored so far that you would
Well,
like to mention?
we think that for now this is enough, because also we discussed within us and we came down to a conclusion that maybe we illustrated before with you, we're unsure of. But basically, when it comes to information that is being transmitted to you as avatars, we also need to temper it. Too much information at once will kill what we are trying or intended to do right now. Like you splash somebody in the face with a glass of water, they're not able to drink anything from it. It's too much, right away. Nothing get digested, nothing get taken. It's defeating the purpose. So we are now considering sharing information that will, at least at the moment, being quite enough, we're hoping, and that will be definitely substantial to start with for everybody who is going to listen, because we understood that you are putting this out there as a podcast, as you may call it. So everybody's going to listen, or at least those who are curious will listen. And therefore, it's not just you as familiar with all those metaphysical concepts and that are able to understand a lot of information that will be given, but it could be also people that are not used to that, not familiar to it. And we are trying to not discourage them in going down this rabbit hole, if we may say. But yeah, so information that will be given probably could be expanded. That's for sure, because you could always expand on information. It's like a limitless, pot. You can draw from it as much as you want. The well is infinite. But just for the sake of your work and the way we understood how you gonna present it and what you're gonna want to do with it, we also need to put a cap on it somehow. Because the structure, because the content, because the ability to digest and integrate needs to be actually at least, like very, very, very easy in order to function and to serve the most people. So in that case, yes and no. Yes, we could elaborate more on mental layer, but no, we don't think it's necessary at this time. That would be plenty enough of information to start with.
Yeah, totally. We understand and accept fully.
Okay, perfect.
Because that is our intention as well, to make it digestible and accessible.
Yeah, because otherwise, why bother calling us if the information is not going to be able to serve anybody, right?
Exactly, exactly. And this also suits our intention to limit the length of these sessions, because we also felt that anything longer than 2 hours of playtime would be too long.
Yes, it might be.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays, because apparently attention shortened, right?
Yeah.
Apparently Avatar are not able to fully concentrate on the long duration anymore. They need shorter everything. So yeah, probably you're right. 2 hours is already plenty of time to stick to a podcast.
Yes. So your idea is perfectly in line with ours.
This is what we like to hear.
Before we close for today, because we are approaching the 2 hour limit, is there anything you would like to say about the brain? Maybe a bit more focus on the physical, on the connection between that physical part of the body, the vessel and the mental layer?
What we can say on the brain, the avatar brain, is it's locked. Basically, the design is built in a way that you could make way more connection. This is baffling, but anyway, it's probably adjusted as well into your time frame to where you at within the game right now. But if you're asking us, the brain is able to transcend and integrate, digest, and get information way better way that is functioning right now. But at this time of the game, as you say, this moment in the game, you are not using all the connections that are able to be made within your physical vessel. The connections that you're making are linked to somehow the mental layer in the sense of the experience that you are doing in the game. For example, very simple illustration. If you are physically learning different languages, right? More than one language, boom, higher connection. So you're opening doors within your brain that will facilitate other learning. Okay. If you are, and we are not advising to, because apparently this is something that's been prevented, although it's fully natural and provided by the game itself, but just for censor, we're going to use it that way. Some plants provided by your game naturally are not to be used, apparently. So we are not saying use them. We're just saying that when you use plants like this, you're also opening doors within your brain and making more pathway and connection electrically to your brain system that would trigger more ability to enlarge your spectrum and therefore gather more information faster, understand, digest, integrate, and put them back out in an easier and faster way. Just think as a processor.
Right.
You know, it's basically you're adding memories or RAM to your processor. So there are ways that you can extend that and different layer as well. The more you build layers, and we're not talking just about physical, because physical is based on muscle, even if the brain has a part on it. Muscle physiology, mechanical of how everything is tied together, but basically emotional layer, mental layer, and experience you're going to have within the game definitely play a role on what and how many doors of your physical brain are open and how many connections are being made and how many connections are being closed as well. And that could be definitely linked to your physical because, you know, physical hurts and mental and actually emotional hurts could definitely close some doors as well. But basically, just think of your brain as labyrinth. Right? You have shit tons of possibility of navigating this labyrinth, but you have somehow to find the correct doors because otherwise you're not going to be able to go through. Okay. So you are the electricity that wires your brain. You hit the door, it's not going further. You're limited by it. But somehow, you can experience so much within the different layers. You can experience so much within your actual game as an avatar and build, because this is the purpose of it, experience more so you can build more, so you can enlarge yourself as an avatar. Therefore, automatically, because you're enlarging yourself as an avatar, your physical brain has to follow. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. It's like you cannot being asked to enlarge yourself, but still play with a shrinked part. It doesn't work like this. You're going to hit a wall at one point. So you will be limited, that's for sure. But there are stuff you can do to expand. Actually, humans use that word, although you use it paired with a word that we disagree on the definition, but expanded consciousness, right? So expanded beingness, let's put it that way, expanded beingness, experiences, sometimes plants or substances, sometimes emotional trigger or shocks or physical shocks or mental, cultivating mental areas of yourself or shedding the mental areas of yourself. All of this will play a role on feeding your brain and on how the activities within your brain will happen. And basically what you call learning, everything you learn, because learning is what? Learning is being able to spot new information, to gather it, to take it all in, to digest it, integrate, and put it out back. This is what learning is, right? So everything you can learn, whether it comes from intellectual, whether it comes from experiencing, you know, with your physical self, experiencing with your emotional self, experiencing with your spiritual self, experiencing with your etherical self, basically learning, right? Gathering more and more and more and more information that you are able to digest. Because what you don't digest, not so much learning. But what you're able to digest and maybe put out when needed or use within when needed, this will expand the ability of your brain to function. This will create more electricity. This will create more interaction with it, open more doors, and this could actually be monitored. You have something that we are familiar with that is called also neurofeedback. That would be a good example where you can see how the brain responds to different electrical stimulation that are not electrical that will be translated into electricity, and it will be affecting your brain in a different way just by doing some new experiments or a new way of speaking to yourself or new way of, looking at something. This is true for everything. Every new stuff you can put to yourself will have somehow an impact on your brain function and your brain, not design, but how can we say unblurred design. Most of your brain is blurry as an actual app. The more new you do, the more parts you open. But also new that is shocking, harmful, sometimes, and especially in the physical, like when you harm yourself physically, and it's true also for emotional and mental, but specifically physically, if you get into shock, you could also unfortunately close some doors or having some malfunction in your brain that will disconnect the fluidity of the circuit within, and that would create difficulties. Let's say if you're hurt physically, this could create difficulties in other layers of yourself. It's not because you are shocked physically that the result in your brain will only act upon your physical layer. You can be shocked physically and it could have repercussion on your emotional and mental layer. You can be shocked emotionally and you could have repercussion on your physical and mental layer, and vice versa, because we already established that everything is basically linked together.
Yeah. I can think of examples for that in everyday life where this can be observed.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you so much for presenting the brain at the end of today's session.
of course.
And also thank you for giving the suggestion or recommendation that new experiences actually unlock new parts of our brain.
Because new experiences are new learnings. And we are insisting on a definition because definitions in your world is key. Learning, not as in, oh, I'm learning words. No, learning as in being able to spot information, gather them, take them in, integrate, digest, process, and, apply within or without. No, not without. Within or out. That would not be the same. That's weird. They should have used within and with, yeah. Well, anyway. Okay. Wording are still like something kind of extraordinary to us, and definition put behind it is even more extraordinary. But yeah, you get the concept, right? Learning in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
experiencing is learning in that sense.
Thank you for emphasizing that.
Of course.
And with this, I think we reached a good point to conclude today's conversation.
Okay. Perfect. I'm glad I jumped in.
Yeah, thank you so much for popping in. It's
You're very welcome.
nice to talk to you again, and I'm sure we'll talk again very soon.
Yes.
But for now, we will let you go. Until next
All right.
time.
We will recess. It was a pleasure as always. We are always happy to come and help when you guys need us.
And we appreciate it immensely. All right. And with this, we now ask all well-meaning, higher dimensional energies and beings who have conversed with us here today, Rufus, and all their aspects, to recede to where they belong. With much love and gratitude. Until next time. Have you ever wanted to work with higher dimensional beings yourself? Then why not join my Transformative Soul Journeys Quantum Hypnosis training? In 4 clear, easy-to-follow modules, you will learn how to guide deep explorations filled with clarity, insight, and guidance for others. For more information, visit thesouljourneys.com.